kids. We're going to read some more of our book, Ramona the Pest. We're on chapter 4. It's called The Substitute. Did you think about what a substitute is? So a substitute is a teacher who comes and teaches for your teacher if your teacher is sick or can't come to school that day. So I'm thinking Miss Benny is going to have a substitute teacher. Do you think Ramona's going to like that? Ramona loves Miss Benny, right? So maybe she won't be too happy to get a new teacher. Chapter 4, The Substitute. Before long, Mrs. Quimby and Mrs. Kemp decided the time had come for Ramona and Howie to walk to school by themselves. Mrs. Kemp, pushing Willa Jean in her stroller, walked Howie to the Quimby's house, where Ramona's mother invited her in for a cup of coffee. "You better put all your stuff away," Howie advised Ramona, as his mother lifted his little sister out of the stroller. Willa Jean crawls around and likes to chew things. Grateful for this advice, Ramona closed the door of her room. "Now, Howie, you be sure to look both ways before you cross the street," cautioned his mother. "You too, Ramona," said Mrs. Quimby, "and be sure you walk. And walk on the sidewalk. Don't go running into the street. And cross between the white lines," said Mrs. Kemp. "And wait for the traffic boy near the school," said Mrs. Quimby. "And don't talk to strangers," said Mrs. Kemp. Ramona and Howie, weighed down by the responsibility of walking to school themselves, trudged on down the street. Howie was even gloomier than usual because he was the only boy in the morning kindergarten who wore jeans with only one hip pocket. And all the other boys had 2 hip pockets. "That is silly," said Ramona, still inclined to be impatient with Howie. If Howie did not like his jeans, why didn't he just make a great big noisy fuss about them? "No, it isn't," contradicted Howie. "Jeans with one hip pocket are babyish." At the cross street, Ramona and Howie stopped and looked both ways. They saw a car coming a block away and they waited. They waited and they waited. And when the car finally passed, they saw another car coming a block away in the opposite direction. They waited some more. And at last the coast was clear and they walked stiff-legged in their haste across the street. "Whew," said Howie, relieved when they got safely across. The next intersection was easier because Henry Huggins in his red traffic sweater and yellow cap was the traffic boy on duty. Ramona was not awed by Henry, even though he had often got to hold the cement and lumber trucks delivering material for the market that was being built across from the school. She had known Henry and his dog Ribsy as long as she could remember, and she admired Henry because not only was he a traffic boy, he also delivered newspapers. Now Ramona looked at Henry, who was standing with his feet apart and his hands clapped behind his back. Ribsy was sitting beside him as if he were watching traffic too. Just to see what Henry would do, Ramona stepped off the curb. "You get back on that curb, Ramona," Henry ordered above the noise of the construction on the corner. Ramona set one foot back on the curb. "All the way, Ramona," said Henry. Ramona stood with both heels on the curb, but her toes over the gutter. Henry could not say that she was not standing on the curb, so he merely glared at her. When several boys and girls were waiting to cross the street, Henry marched across with Ribsy prancing along beside him. "Beat it, Ribsy," said Henry between his teeth. Ribsy paid no attention. Directly in front of Ramona, Henry executed a sharp about-face like a real soldier. Ramona marched behind Henry, stepping as close to his sneakers as she could. The other children laughed. And on the opposite curb, Henry tried to execute another military about-face, but instead he tripped over Ramona. "Doggone it, Ramona," he said angrily. "If you don't cut that out, I'm going to report you." "Nobody reports kindergartners," scoffed an older boy. "Well, I'm going to report Ramona if she doesn't cut it out," said Henry. Obviously, Henry felt it was his bad luck that he had to guard an intersection where Ramona had to cross the street. Between crossing the street without a grown-up and getting so much attention from Henry, Ramona felt that her day was off to a good start. However, she and Howie approached the kindergarten building. She saw at once that something was wrong. The door to the kindergarten was already open. No one was playing on the jungle gym. No one was even waiting in line by the door. Instead, the boys and girls were huddled in groups like frightened mice. They all looked worried, and once in a while someone who appeared to be acting brave would run to the open back door, peer inside, and come running back to the group to report something. "What's the matter?" asked Ramona. "Miss Binny isn't here," whispered Susan. "It's a different lady." "A substitute," said Eric R. "Miss Binny was not there? Susan must be wrong. Miss Binny had to be there. Kindergarten would not be kindergarten without Miss Binny." Ramona ran to the door to see for herself, and Susan was right. Miss Binny was not there. Instead, there was a woman who was busy at Miss Binny's desk, who was taller and older. She was as old as a mother. Her dress was brown and her shoes were sensible. Ramona did not like what she saw at all, so she ran back to the cluster of boys and girls. "What are you doing?" she asked, feeling as if she had been deserted by Miss Binny. For her teacher to go home and not come back was not right. "I think I'll go home," said Susan. Ramona thought this idea was babyish of Susan. She had seen what happened to boys and girls who ran home from kindergarten. Their mothers marched them right back. And that's what happened. No, going home would not do. "I bet the substitute won't even know the rules of our kindergarten," said Howie. The children agreed. Miss Binny said following the rules of their kindergarten was important. How could this stranger know what the rules were? A stranger would not even know the names of the boys and girls. She might even get them mixed up. Still feeling that Miss Binny was disloyal to stay away from school, Ramona made up her mind she was not going into that kindergarten room with that strange teacher. Nobody could make her go in there. But where could she go? She could not go home because her mother would march her back. She could not go into the main building of the Glenwood School because everyone would know a girl her size belonged in the kindergarten. She had to hide. But where? When the first bell rang, Ramona knew she did not have much time. There was no place to hide on a kindergarten playground, so she slipped behind the little building and joined the boys and girls who were streaming into the red brick building. "Kindergarten, baby," said a first grade girl. "Pie face," answered Ramona with spirit. She could see only two places to hide, behind the bicycle racks or behind a row of trash cans. Ramona chose the trash cans. As the last children entered the building, she got down on her hands and her knees and she crawled into the space between the cans and the red brick wall. Then the second bell rang. Hop, 2, 3, 4, hop, 2, 3, 4. The traffic boys were marching back from their posts at the intersections near the school. Ramona crouched motionless on the ground. Hop, 2, 3, 4. The traffic boys, heads up, eyes front, marched past the trash cans and into the building, and the playground was quiet, and Ramona was alone. Henry's dog Ribsy, who had followed the traffic boys as far as the door of the school, came trotting over to check the odors of the trash cans. He put his nose down to the ground and whiffled around the cans while Ramona crouched motionless with the rough ground digging into her knees. Ribsy's busy nose led him around the can face to face with Ramona. "Woof!" said Ribsy. "Ribsy, go away!" ordered Ramona in a whisper. "Ruff!" Ribsy knew Ramona was not supposed to be behind those trash cans. "Oh, you be quiet!" Ramona's whisper was as ferocious as she could make it. Over in the kindergarten class, the class began to sing the song about the Donzer. At least the strange woman knew that much about kindergarten. And after the Donzer song, the kindergarten was quiet. Ramona wondered if the teacher knew that show and tell was supposed to come next. She strained her ears, but she could not hear any activity in that little building. The space between the brick wall and the trash cans began to feel as cold as a refrigerator to Ramona in her thin sweater. The asphalt dug into her knees, so she sat down with her feet straight out toward Ribsy's nose, and the minutes dragged by. Except for Ribsy, Ramona was very lonely. She leaned against the chill red bricks and felt sorry for herself. Poor little Ramona, all alone except for Ribsy behind the trash cans. Miss Binny would be sorry if she knew what she had made Ramona do. She would be sorry if she knew how cold and lonesome Ramona was. Ramona felt so sorry for the poor shivering little child behind the trash cans that one tiny tear and then another slid down her cheeks. She sniffed pitifully. Ribsy opened one eye and looked at her before he closed it again. Not even Henry's dog cared what happened to her. Poor little Ramona, huh? Too scared to go in to her substitute teacher. Now she's behind the trash cans all cold and lonely. What will happen to Ramona when we come back? Let's see if there's any pictures coming up. Oh, I do see a picture. We'll take a sneak peek. I think somebody's going to find Ramona behind the trash cans. Well, we'll see you next time for the rest of that chapter. Bye for now.